about what do we mean by calendars. The term calendar means we are talking about working days and non-working days, holidays and vacations. Yes, you are right. Calendars in Microsoft Project is also going to mean the same. They are going to define the working time and the non-working time at different levels for scheduling. These calendars are quite important when it comes to scheduling your activities in Microsoft Project. So we all know that for a schedule, tasks are the fundamental block for building any schedule. Any task in Microsoft Project is going to be scheduled using several factors. One of these factors are calendars, and other factors include your task dependencies, the resource availability, any constraints that you have placed for your activities. So in this program, we are going to only talk about how calendars are going to affect the calculation of dates on your project. As I have already mentioned, calendars determine the standard working time and the non-working time such as weekends, holidays and vacations for your projects. So in Microsoft Project, there are 4 types of calendars which you might want to understand. The first calendar is called as base calendar. The second one is called project calendar. The third one is the resource calendar, and the fourth is the task calendar. Now let's try to take a small analogy to understand what these 4 calendars are and what are the priority levels for these 4 calendars. Now let me start with a very simple example. If you look at within your own team, each one of us are individuals by ourselves. We have our own working time. We always have our own holidays and vacation plans within it. So a project team is not going to have only one person. Then every scheduling is going to be quite simple because most of your activities will be done quite sequentially. But in almost all projects what we observe and where we work with, we have multiple team members working in projects, where each team member will have a different working time. They will also have a different set of holidays and vacation plans. Now let's take a small example that each one of the images that are being displayed here represents a team member in your project team. Now let's say that the first team member, the working time is only from Monday to Friday. The working time is from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and the vacation is 25th of May, and any holidays for that resource is on 26th of June. If you look at the next resource, again it is from Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., but no vacations, but they have the same set of holidays. So you will be able to follow the remaining timings for each one of your resources. So as the number of resources keeps on increasing, it's quite difficult to maintain their individual resource calendars. So the first term what I'm using here is called resource calendar. Resource calendar defines the working time of an individual in your project, which means it is quite personalized for your team members. But it would have been quite nice if I have something more generic on the top, where I'm able to define a template calendar that is going to have the common working times and holidays so that all my resource can inherit that working time from the top. So this calendar is what I call as the base calendar. So you can see on the slide that there are 2 calendars which I have on the top, the Chennai calendar and the Mumbai calendar. So the Chennai calendar is going to say that the working time for everyone who works in Chennai is from Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and their holidays are 26th of June. Similarly for Mumbai calendar, I'm going to say Monday to Saturday is the working time, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. where 6th of June is a holiday for them. So when I have a base calendar set, the advantage I have is for every individual resource calendar, I don't need to redefine their working time. I just need to link that resource calendar with the base calendar so that the working time is automatically getting inherited. So just a quick recap, there are 2 calendars which we discussed in this slide. The first calendar is called as the resource calendar, which is going to define the working time and the holidays and vacations, which is quite personalized for one team member. If there are more than one team member working in a same location, naturally their working times and maybe regional or public holidays will be quite same. Those holidays, rather than redefining it at the resource calendar level, it can be abstracted at the base calendar year. So this is more of an information that in Microsoft Project, you can have as many number of base calendars and as many number of resources also. In other words, as many number of resource calendars. But one point you might want to remember here is one resource can have only one resource calendar, which means I cannot say a resource calendar should be linked to both Mumbai and Chennai. It can't be done. A resource can be linked only to one base calendar at any point in time. Okay? Now the next calendar which I'm going to talk about is quite interesting, which is more like task calendar. So let's take a small example that this is John and this is the working time of John. Okay, let's say Monday to Friday, morning 9 to evening 6 p.m. So when I assign John to an activity like design work, okay, and let's assume I'm assigning this resource to an activity called design work. So naturally, Microsoft Project is going to schedule the work for that resource based on the resource calendar only, which means the work will be scheduled at any time between Monday to Friday, only from morning 9 to evening 6. And that really makes a lot of sense for us, right? Now let's take a complex case. Now let's say we have an activity called a server downtime or a server repair or server maintenance, okay? So you might know that these activities cannot be done during the normal weekdays, which is Monday to Friday. So because we have certain procedures that needs to be followed for that. So for a task like server repairs, I can have my own calendar. So let's say the server repairs is having its own calendar, which is called as task calendar. This calendar is going to define when this task can be done from what time to what time. Now comes a more interesting challenge. If I am going to assign John for server repairs, now we have two calendars, so the resource calendar and the task calendar of server repairs. Now you might wonder, what will project do? Remember, project will always try to look at the common working time between the resource calendar and the task calendar for scheduling that task. Which means, if the task calendar says the server repair can be done on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, whereas the resource is available only from Monday to Friday, naturally the server repair can be done only on a Friday. Not any day between Monday to Thursday or not on Saturdays and Sundays. So it will try to find a common working time between the task calendar and the resource calendar for scheduling that work. But what if there is no overlapping working time between the resource calendar and the task calendar? For say, let's say the server repair can be done only on a Sunday, which means the task calendar will be configured that only Sunday can be done, the remaining days it cannot be done. In case there is no common working time, the server repair will always be scheduled as per your task calendar only, which means your resource calendar will be ignored. So the task calendar is always getting the highest priority than your resource calendars. So just a few slides back, we were talking about 4 types of calendars. One is called base calendar, one is project calendar, the next is resource calendar, and the task calendar. Task calendars are those that you apply for a particular activity alone if those tasks are having constraints on when it can be scheduled. Every resource or every team member is going to have his or her own calendar, which is called as a resource calendars. Whereas base calendars are more generic, more templates that is going to define the common working times on the holidays that are going to be used in your project. Okay? Now, let's move on to project 13. Okay? You might wonder, how can we configure these calendars? Can we have an example for it? So I'm going to give a short intro about how these calendars can be used right now. So what I am right now using is project 2013. Okay, so the project 2013 is what I am right now using. So I have opened a project plan which I have already created. Okay, so I'm just going to start from the scratch. Maybe for people who are quite new to MS Project may know how it works. For creating any new project plan, you need to go to the File, New, and you go for the Blank Project option. So when you go for the Blank Project option, project does not create any resource calendars or task calendars for you. It's just going to assume that there are certain standard base calendars which you might want to use, and it takes a copy of those base calendars from a global file. And this global file is also called as global.mpt. MPT stands for Global Template. Now let me give you a demo of it. So let me click on the Blank Project first. So the Blank Project is now created. So the view right now I'm looking at is the Gantt chart view. So the Gantt chart view is the one which you see on the leftmost sidebar here. Okay. So I use this first word called base calendars, right? So first let's take an example that you would like to create two base calendars, one for Chennai region and one for Mumbai region. How do we do it? So the first step, go to the project tab and click on the command called change working time. Okay, let me select it. You are able to find that project is able to give me some 3 standard base calendars. So on the drop down you find we have 24 hours, night shift and standard. Each one is a base calendar by itself. You can also see the label below the drop down. It says 24 hours is a base calendar. Standard is a base calendar. Night shift is also another base calendar. You might wonder, where are these calendars coming from? We didn't create it. So as I told you, it gets copied from a global template file. So if you want to know about it, just click on File, okay, and click on the Info command and click on the Organizer button. Clicking on the Organizer opens up the Organizer dialog where you have several tabs where you will be able to look at what is available in your global template file. So go to the Calendars tab. You can find towards your left, we have global.mpt, which has those 3 calendars, standard, night shift, and 24 hours. Okay. So let me start by creating the Chennai calendar first. So I'll go to the project, change working time. So you can see the standard calendar is available on your screen where the current day has been selected by default. You can also see for the current day the timing is from 8 to 12, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And the days which are grayed out are non-working days. Okay. Now, how do you create your own work calendar and how do you configure the working and the non-working days? To create your own calendar, use this command called create new calendar command. Okay, create new calendar command. So once you click on this create new calendar, you have a dialog where it tells you whether you want to create a new base calendar or do you want to take a copy of an existing base calendar. So I go for the first option, create a new base calendar, and make sure that you give a very generic name. Don't try to give a name of a resource here or a task here, because here we are talking about only region-specific calendars, if that is how you might want to call it. So I will say Chennai. So Chennai has been created as a base calendar. So as per our slides, we said for Chennai, Monday to Friday is a working day. The working time is from 8 to 12 and 1 to 5. So how do I change it? So if you select any day, any weekday in project, it automatically tells you the working time. Just below that it tells you based on the default work week on calendar Chennai. Okay. So the default work week is what you need to edit to make this change. So where is this default work week residing? Go to the second tab, which is the work weeks tab, and you can find the default entry is available here. So on the default entry, you find the start and finish will not be set by default. it defaults to NA and NA. Some of you might wonder what that is. Can I change the dates here? Please note, if the start date is NA, if the start date is NA in project 2013, it is assumed as 1st of January 1984. Let me repeat. 1st of January 1984 is assumed as the start date of default. The finish date of default, if it is NA, has been assumed as 31st of December 2149, which means we have another 100 years to reach that date, right? So which means the default work week will apply across all those years, what I mentioned. So how do I edit my default? One way is click on the details or just double click the default entry. You can find a dialog box opens for default, where you can either select one at a time or you can also do a multi-select, like how I am doing right now. After selecting all the days, you choose what you want to do. Do you want it to default it to the original timing, which means nothing is editable? If I go for the second option, it will be made as a non-working day. Or the third option, to give it your own timing. So make sure that you give the timing in hours and minutes format. Okay, so let me say 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., 2 p.m. to, let's say, 5 p.m. Okay. So the timings, whatever I have mentioned here, will apply only for Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday is still a non-working day only because I have gone by the default working time. After making this change, the moment I say OK, you can see the working time has automatically been updated. It says working time on 9th of May, it is from 9 to 1 and 2 to 6. You might wonder, is this working time only for May or is it for the previous months? Remember, default is applied from 1984 to 2149, which means even all the previous weeks and the previous months and the subsequent weeks and the subsequent months will be getting affected. Okay, so this is how you might want to change the default working time of a base calendar. Now the next requirement which people do have is on specific months, the working time is different. How do I do it? Let's say for a month of September, the working time is from, let's say, 10 to 2 and 3 to 7. Okay? So how do I change it? So I want this to be done only for the month of September 2014 alone. If I apply it in default, it will apply it for all years and all months, which I don't want to do. Which means you need to go in for the non-default work week. The term non-default means you are trying to add additional work weeks below that. So you can make another entry. This is only a description. Maybe I'll say working time for September 2014. And make sure you give the correct start date and finish date. So from 1st of September till end of September, I want this non-default work week to be applied. I'll just open that entry. I'll select Monday to Friday, go for the third option and say 10 to 2 and 3 to 7. Oh, sorry. 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. So this will be applied only for Monday to Friday and only from 1st of September till 30th of September. Okay? Which means for the days which are outside, which are before and after September, the default work week will be applied. Okay? So let me say OK now. And you can see that now the working time has got changed only for September. If you go to the next month, you can see the default work week is what is being applied. Okay. Now let me go to the next tab, which is called as exceptions. So the term exceptions means you are trying to override something, right? So let's say that for the month of June 13th, I want to make 13th as a holiday, okay, in Chennai. How to do it? It's quite simple. I will select 13. Okay, I go to the exceptions, and you can give a description. Okay, why it's just being made as a holiday. Okay, I'll just say government holiday here, and the selected day which I selected will be put in the start and finish. Okay, so on that day has been marked as a non-working day, and it is based on the exception government holiday which I have entered here. Okay, now going by what I told you right now, you might wonder exceptions is only for holidays and I can set only one holiday at a time. It is not. You can always have multiple holidays on one entry, and more than that, exceptions are not only for holidays. You can also configure a working time in exceptions which can have a pattern associated with it. Let's assume that I want to make the second or the third Saturday of every month as a working day. I want to make the third Saturday of every month as a working day. Let's say this should happen from 1st of June, okay, till, let's say, end of September. So I'm giving the start date and the end date of the range, and let me say second Saturday is working. Okay, so I'll just try to remove this one. Just hold on. Yeah. So by default, when you celebrate start and finish, it will assume all the days that are between 1/7 till 39 will be marked as a holiday. But I want to change it. So I'll just double click that entry. I'm just waiting for a few seconds for that dialog to open. Now you can find all the days that are selected from 1/7 to 39 as being made as a non-working day. But now I would like to differ here. I would like to say it is a working day. The working time is from 9 to 1, 2 to 6. And monthly, we want the third Saturday. We want the third Saturday of every month to be made as a working day. And it should end after so many occurrences or end by that particular date. So the moment I say OK, you can see a difference. You can see only the third Saturday of every month has been made as working. And after September, you don't see that because it has gone by the default work week. Okay. So what we have right now seen is how to create a base calendar. So it's very, very direct. You go to the project, change working time for every region, create a calendar, configure its working weeks, and configure its exceptions. Okay. So this is the first step you need to do. Now let me go back to my presentations, okay? So we talked about what is global.mpt and how to configure its calendars. Now we also talked about how to change the working time of the calendars by using work weeks and exceptions.